It's Friday, March 15th. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel with a late-breaking update on the Latam Flight 800 from Sydney to Auckland. In-flight upset which injured 50 passengers, many of who were not properly fastened into their seat belts during the middle of the cruise flight. Boeing has sent out a multi-operator message regarding a loose rocker switch in the back of the pilot's seat that apparently was triggered, causing the in-flight upset. Let's check it out. In yesterday's video, we learned how this rocker switch is supposed to work in the Boeing 787. This switch is not found in the 777, located right here in the back of the two pilot seats. It's designed for you to conveniently move the seat out of your way so you can get into the cockpit. If you press that rocker switch the other direction, it'll move the seat forward. But you're supposed to be able to only actuate it by lifting the cover. Now this video has emerged, and I don't know if this is the actual incident aircraft after the incident, but here's a case where a loose rocker switch is moving simply by pressing down on the cover.
Se mueve solo el asiento.
He says the seat, it's moving on its own.
Se mueve solo el asiento.
Just by pressing down on the cover, indicating that that rocker switch underneath that cover is loose.
Se mueve solo el asiento.
So this comes to us from today's Wall Street Journal. A Latam Airlines flight attendant hit a switch on the pilot's seat while serving a meal, leading a motorized feature to push the pilot into the controls and push down the plane's nose, according to U.S. industry officials briefed on preliminary evidence from the investigation. The switch on the back of the chair is usually covered, and it's not supposed to be used when the pilot is in the seat. Boeing issued a memo late Thursday to operators of the 787 jet recommending that they inspect the cockpit chairs for loose covers and instructing them how to turn off the power to the pilot's seat motor if needed. Boeing said that it's considering updates to the flight crew manuals. Closing the spring-loaded seatback switch guard onto a loose or detached rocker switch cap can potentially jam the rocker switch, resulting in unintended seat movement. So, you 787 operators, I'd like to hear from you. If you've got a copy of this multi-operator message, I'd like to see it or a link to it, and I'd also like to find out, so what's the instructions for turning this motor off? Do you simply counteract it with your normal switches on the inboard side of the seat? Or is there another circuit breaker we got to find and turn off in order to stop this? So 787s, let us know in the comment section below. But here's the illustration illustrating what's going on here. This rocker switch is up and loose, and if you simply push down on the cover, like a flight attendant coming into the cockpit and leaning on the back of the seat as she hands you a meal, that fired off this rocker switch. Unintentional movement of the seat. The investigation will have to see if there was any additional factors that could have exacerbated the situation, like perhaps was it a crew meal tray that got trapped between the pilot and the yoke. Now, there's some confusion in the comment section about this autopilot and why this would pitch down so nose violently. So remember, the aircraft is in cruise flight with the autopilot on. The seat moves forward. The control yoke, you can bump that control yoke pretty hard and not knock the autopilot off. The autopilot will resist your movement up to a certain amount of force as predetermined by the manufacturers. And once you exceed that force, the autopilot will kick off. So the autopilot is fighting you, trying to keep the plane level. So yeah, it's trying to prevent the nose from going down, but the harder you push on that yoke, that autopilot turns off or cuts loose, releases the clutches, and that stick is going to move to whatever location that it's getting jammed to, and that's going to result in a violent nose down pitching of the aircraft. The aircraft will follow the control command input. And generally, the further aft you are seated, after the center of gravity of the aircraft, the greater the forces will feel that are imparted on this nose-down bunting of the aircraft. Another reason why to always keep your seatbelts fastened even during cruise flight as a passenger, just like the pilots up in the front of the cockpit. Thank you for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. Check your subscription and notification settings to all to keep up on all these updates. See you here.